Welcome. Thanks for joining us today for Managing Your Virtual Presence. I'm Christy Atwood,
Hi, I'm Kimberly Broussard.
and today we have got some great tips for you on how to take that great, big professional image you have and squeeze it down into this little box.
Today, you guys, our goal is to give you some tips on how to manage your professional image, that professional image you've been working so hard to create, but with virtual communications. And today we have our wonderful talent development team that's going to help us out with giving us some ideas and some tips on this subject matter.
And we want your input too. That's why when we start each section, we're going to be asking some questions. And sometimes we're going to be asking questions that we would like your input in. So that's why we want you to use the questions box today to be able to answer some of these questions. In fact, let's go ahead and start it out with one. All right. Here's our first section. Let's talk about this. Okay. We know right now in the world of offices and teleworking and all of that, some of our professionalism might have slipped a little bit. You know how it is. It's some of our dress, maybe. Maybe it's our attention span. Maybe it's how we prepare for stuff. Maybe it's even how we participate in meetings and things. So it might have slipped a little bit. What we want right now from you in the questions box, we want you to think about this. What are some of the factors that most affect your image, your image or your opinion of a person's online professional image? In other words, what is it that when you look at them on the screen, you go, "Ooh, that person's professional," or "Not so much." I'd like you to type those into the questions box right now. We'll be discussing those as we go through this section.
I want you guys to think about how our communication has, the way we communicate has changed. Now we're predominantly using the virtual setting. So if you look at yourself right now, the way you look now and everything, would you wear whatever you're wearing or look the way you look in an in-person meeting? I don't know how many times I've received a text, hey, can we meet in 5 minutes? So hey, can we meet in 10 minutes? And I'm running to my bedroom to hurry up and comb my hair and put on some decent clothes so that I'm professional in that virtual online setting. So you want to make sure that you're always prepared. And I had to condition myself to wake up and put on something, some attire, my professional hair, my hair, my face, you know, wear something that I would wear in an in-person meeting. Something else when you're in the virtual setting, it's important that you limit your distractions. I don't know if you guys were on the one. I think it was maybe two months ago, our last one, when you talked about Christian gave a tip about a woman who went inside her walk-in closet so that she could limit those outside distractions, and she put a sheet over her clothes so that it was a professional setting. So it's very important that you guys, limit your distractions. Go into I was going to say a secure location. Go into a location where you're not tempted and no one will disturb you. I know sometimes it can be hard, especially if you have kids or even pets that love you dearly. But another tip that I want to give you guys is definitely to avoid those conversations with people, with outside individuals that are not in your virtual setting. What I do, my strategy is give the mom eyes so that I don't have to say anything verbally. And so I give them a quick glance and they know not to go ahead and interrupt me during this time. So you want to avoid those conversations, especially if you're not on mute, because it could be a distraction to others. And you want to make sure that you close out your programs. So many times I know that I'm guilty of it sometimes with keeping my email open. And so I could be in a meeting and my email will pop up and I'm like, ooh, that's some information that I've been waiting for. And it's more of a little incentive for me to want to click on it and read, that information that I'm requesting. But try to go and close out everything so that you are not distracted and you are giving that individual your undivided attention. And last but not least, my favorite, when you have to step away from a virtual setting, make sure that you turn your camera off and you put yourself on mute. You know, it, if you don't take that camera off and put yourself on mute, you might have those extra guests, whether it's Fluffy that's going to make a grand appearance in your virtual setting, or one of your children who might sit in and want to go ahead and put their 2 cents in. So that's just a few tips that I have.
Some real good tips too. And I know if you use those mom eyes on me, I would not be saying another word for the rest of the day. But okay, a couple of other tips here. Okay, look right now. I know you're not using your camera on this webinar. That's okay. But look where your webcam is. If you're using a camera, a laptop with your camera, where is your webcam? Is it level with your eyes? That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to get it to that point. If you have it too far down, they're looking up your nose. You have it too far up, it's not good. So try to keep it where you're right eye level with your camera, and it's going to give you the best, most professional look. It's really good. And you know what? I know that sometimes we think we have to get these big fancy stands and stuff. Right down here under mine, bunches of books. I don't read them. I don't read them, but I got them there. And you got boxes. Okay, whatever it takes to get it up to that level, because it just gives you a more professional appearance. Another thing you might want to consider is your lighting. Now, a lot of the places that we get in don't have good lighting. Understandable. What we want to do is try to make the best of what we have. So we want to try to make sure that any light from windows and stuff is not coming from behind us, because that's going to mess up the picture. If you need some extra lighting because you're in a dark corner, kind of like I am, what you can do is actually get stuff like any kind of lamp, but the little ring lamps are pretty cool. They come on little tripods, and you can have those reflecting to give you a little extra light like that. So what you're just trying to do is give that better picture in your box so they get the best look of you. Okay, let's see here. We got to look at some of these because this is interesting stuff here. Okay, let's see what people have said as far as the challenges to professional image. Y'all
Well,
looking too?
Christy, I will say there's been a lot of talk about appearance, asterisk, from the waist up.
Yes, yes. Because what's below this doesn't matter. All right, okay, but
Unless you get up to leave and you don't turn that monitor off, and then you're showing your pajama pants to everyone.
that's not a good thing. You are so correct. Okay, so that's let's see here. This is interesting. Amanda's talking about they've actually established a rule that they will not do impromptu video meetings in her group. And that's actually a really good idea. It's kind of nice to do for people, you know. Um, and people don't like it when people are talking to somebody else or making noise while they're in a meeting. Y'all can jump in with some of these if you see some that I'm missing. Okay, dress.
A lot of types of, or a lot of comments about the backgrounds as well.
Yes, backgrounds and the virtual, how groomed, their appearance, how they're dressed. Let's see here. Okay.
And I like Frank's comment particularly. He said that the backgrounds and all of this, it could give a representation of how prepared you are for the meeting, which I thought was a really neat perspective.
That is an
Right.
excellent point. Yeah, it's creating the whole image that you're trying to do. What do they call it now? Optics, I think. That you're trying to give that positive thing. That's an excellent one, Frank.
Mhm.
And yes, some people are talking about how you could add backgrounds to your session, and if done well, some of them are almost seamless where you can't tell that it's a picture of an office. Oh, James, thank you. They have a bookshelf in the background and a jacket on. I am now officially professional. Thank you. Okay.
That means the rest of us, we're no go.
Right.
Quick, go get your bookshelf.
Hi, Jenny. Oh, yes. Appearance, clothes, background, eye contact with the camera. That is, because even though we know it's harder to look straight into the camera than it is to look at people on the screen, um, we still get that feeling that that's shifty if people are looking away. So it's a professional thing. Try to practice looking into the camera. One of the best examples I heard was pretend there's a family of 4 living in there and you're trying to communicate with them. That's kind of cool. Let's see, clothes, background, attire, the noise. Oh, the microphone quality. That makes a difference, doesn't it?
Ooh, definitely.
Yeah, and that's one we all need to work on, don't we? Because sometimes, let's see here, the virtual background choice. Okay, what they're wearing. Okay, and that's a really good point, Vicky. If you're not prepared for an impromptu meeting, making sure you have a good little profile picture on there and just having that up is a good option,
Mm.
rather than having yourself in your pajamas. Oh, Viola, I so agree with it. Lowers my idea of a person's professionalism if they're playing on their cell phone, they're not looking at the screen. I just feel like I have interrupted them in something that they feel is much more important than
Mhm.
whatever I have to talk about. So these are some excellent points, y'all. Wonderful. Um, so that's talking about some of our basics, our basic overview. Well, let's look at a couple other things here because there's body language. And it still matters. Even if you're in the box, body
Mhm.
language still matters. See what Kim's doing right now? Nodding her head. There's positive body language for you. So I want to know from y'all, type this into your questions box. What positive behaviors do you use to show that you're listening, even though you're in this virtual meeting and you're in a box? What kind of things do you do that show that you're engaged in that meeting?
Body language is definitely important, especially in this little box because it conveys to the other individuals in that online setting. It can either positively or negative convey some type of image or something. Just imagine when you're in an in-person meeting and that individual is slumped over and you can't tell that they even have bones in their body. What message does that convey? Sometimes boredom and sometimes just uninterested. And you want to make sure that you are conveying a positive image in that little bitty virtual box. So, Monica Smith, I believe that you have some tips for us in regards to this, correct?
Yes, just a couple of more quick things as far as body language and things you can do just to again present that positive professional image that we all want to continue even though we're in a virtual setting. So the like Christy said, the most important thing is having that eye contact. Sometimes people find it difficult because you are on the screen. So a quick fix for that is line your panel across the top of your screen. That way, you don't have to constantly look up or down or to the left or right. So once you have all that established, then you want to make sure that you're making that eye contact. Like you said, make sure your stature, your posture is upright, that you look attentive, and you want to be engaging. How can you be engaging in this type of setting? You want to make sure that you provide appropriate facial expressions. So if I'm talking, I would hope that your facial expression would not be that would make me feel kind of sad. So just make sure that you're presenting and providing back that positive image. In addition to that, sometimes other distractions can be if people are having excessive movements and you may not even be aware. Say you're shaking your leg, you could be vibrating your camera. That's a weird effect. So you just want to be aware of that or just going back and forth during the process. That transferring can be seen as a distraction as well. So pretty much anything that you can think of, you want to make sure that you're as centered as possible in your square as well. You don't want to be too far to the left or right or outside of the screen. The most important thing is just to make sure that you're presenting that image that you want to project, professional and engaged.
That's excellent. And we were picking on Monica before this because we figured she looks like a correspondent from CNN or something, and that set that she has there, very professional looking.
Definitely. I was waiting for her to say back to you, Kimberly.
So let's take a peek here at our question box and see what sort of things people do as far as showing their positive behaviors. Oh, Yolanda, yeah. Watching the tone of voice,
Ooh.
being prepared in advance by sending out an agenda and
Mhm.
always introducing yourself before speaking. That's a really good idea, especially if you're on a program where it doesn't automatically show the name each time you go to speak, because some people might not be on camera too, and they would really need to be able to say, "Hi, this is Christy Atwood." Da 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 da. That's
Right.
excellent, excellent. Um, okay, what are some of the other ones that y'all see in here that we have as far as smiling, nodding in agreement? Those are good body languages to show that you're actually involved. Okay, this is a really good point. Someone's talking about, I don't have a webcam, so she's very careful to participate in the chats. Jamaica,
Ooh,
I think that is a perfect alternative for that, because
sure.
we're going to be seeing the chats show up, just like you're doing here. So you didn't have to be on camera to be involved in it. Okay. Let's see here.
Jennifer from our team gave us a good one too. Make sure for those folks that are wearing glasses, turn down your screen brightness so everybody's not blinded by the reflection.
Yep. Yep. That's why I finally got to where I'm wearing the glasses halfway down, because it was blinding everybody. So I've got some that said they were glare proof. They're not. But it's the thought that counts, right?
Right.
Okay. Sitting up straight, shaking head in agreement like Kim's doing. Yes. All of these are really good ideas. Okay. Okay. So I'm just trying to see here if there's anything else. Image of yourself with a smile, a nice for a profile picture. So looking into the camera, smiling, nodding when I agree with a point, and occasional thumbs up if someone asks a questions like, "Can you hear me?" and I'm on mute. That's a great way to do it, Amanda. So you have your own sign language there. So all of these are the sorts of things that we can do to show that we're actually listening, that we are actually engaged in the conversation that's going on. And that's the main thing we want to make sure, is that people know that we are truly involved in the conversation, that we're not just sitting here playing with something on the other side of the screen somewhere. All right. So how about this next one? This is going to be fun. Okay, here it is. What I want you to do, stop right now. I want you to look behind you, and I want to rate what your background looks like. Would you rate it perfect? Would you rate it okay? Would you rate it needs help? Or would you rate it disaster area? I would like you to type that into the question box. And as we're talking, I'll be watching to see how many of us have disaster areas. So please, go ahead and type that into the questions box now.
Christy, I hope that's not a picture of my desk. So you want to consider your visuals. This is a big part of the professional image. So Monica, I believe you're going to help us on this one.
Right. We focused a lot on just your physical appearance, but as you all can see, our faces aren't the only thing that's in these squares. So depending on what you have in your background, it can affect how you perceive professionally. So the big thing you want to pay attention to, or a way to help, log into like a meeting as if you were going to a meeting, and then take a picture of your background and take some time to sit down and look around, look at it, see if it's something in there that would probably be best to not be in there. With that being said, as far as if the area is cluttered, it appears kind of messy, or depending on where you are or what's at your workstation, you may have some private information that shouldn't be shown to the general public. So you want to make sure no confidential information is being shared accidentally. Also, we talked a little bit about those virtual backgrounds, and they are fine. But two things you want to be mindful of: you want to make sure it's not distracting. So if you're in your meeting and every 5 seconds someone's in the back picking up crabs, that may be distracting to your audience because you have the beat setting. The other thing is sometimes with your green screens, you may appear to be a floating head in some of them when you use a virtual background if it's not a good match. Also, you want to make sure that there are no color conflicts. You want what you wear and your background not to clash, just so it can be as cohesive as possible. And again, just provide that professional image that you're trying to portray.
And Monica, please know, I think Christy's laughing at the same thing, but these comments that everybody's writing in are hilarious.
Yes.
We've got some disaster zones. We've got something, we've got like dumpster fires. Everybody's got different things going on. Their responses are hilarious.
Julie, share some more with us. You can do that.
Yeah. So some people have got their kids' drawings of Pooh behind them, like Pooh Bear, Winnie the Pooh. We've got a lot of okays. Some really perfects. Look at y'all.
Good job.
And Nina, please know I'm back in the office, so I'll work on getting some props back here.
Yeah, that's that severe look right back there with nothing there. But you know what? This is a lot of people are saying it's okay, but I can improvement. Maybe too
Yeah.
colorful. Okay, you know, some things like that. But yeah, a few disasters. Yeah, okay. But this is something we do want to keep in mind because, as we said earlier, um, this is part of the image that we're portraying, and this little box is everything that people have to see about us. Those are some good answers from y'all. I love
Mhm.
it. All right. So that's what we look at with that. We want to make sure that we are considering. Let me see here. Considering our visuals. Any other comments on that?
The only other thing that we have experienced, again, is a learning process. Sometimes if you don't limit your area to prevent entry, may it be a pet or a spouse, just as far as your background, and that could be a distraction if someone is trafficking back and forth through the area where you're having the meeting or webinar.
That's a really good
Yeah.
point. We see those unexpected visitors passing by.
Yes,
Sometimes four-legged, sometimes two-legged, but yes, that
right.
happens. Right.
Those frequent unexpected guests.
Good ones.
Definitely. Something else,
Oh,
Chris, be mindful if you're next to a window. Because I know I was on a meeting with Julie, and a window was behind me, and the sun was shining. And although I am an angel, it was distracting for Julie because she couldn't see my face.
your halo was just too bright.
Too
Oh,
It
bright,
was.
too bright.
okay. All right. So, okay. Now, this next one, you don't have to type anything on this one. I just want you to take a moment and look. Look at what's open on your screen right now. That's something we have to consider. And don't worry, I'm not going to look at the attentiveness meter to see how many of you are not actually looking at what's on our screen. But basically, what I'd like you to think about is there anything on your screen that is sensitive information? That if you went and clicked share screen, somebody might see something they're not supposed to see. That's what this is asking about. Is there anything that's confidential on your screen right now?
Our next section is going to cover, protecting sensitive information. And we all know that whenever you're getting up from your computer, we're supposed to lock our screens. But what about in the online meetings? Julie Miller, I believe you have some tips to share with us on this one.
Yeah, and I think each of our agencies might have different things that we would consider sensitive. So I think we have to keep those differences in mind. And before you go into that meeting, check your desktop. And if those of you like me coming back into the office, if we have the luxury of having more than one screen, generally your second screen is cleaner, fewer icons than your primary screen. So making sure that you're sharing that secondary screen with fewer icons on there is beneficial. If you only have one screen though, consider sharing just the application you're wanting to show. Like on Christy's screen, or on the PowerPoint, this is a screenshot of a Zoom share. So that way you can pick if you want to share your whole screen. Are you showing the PowerPoint? What specifically are you wanting to show? Yes, Erica, that's a great point. Make sure you close out any of your messenger apps. Those types of things that will definitely
Alerts.
that will cause alerts, and we probably don't want other people seeing what we were talking about going to eat for lunch. And making sure I know we've mentioned it before, but closing your email and all your browsers. The people you're meeting with probably aren't interested in what you were Googling earlier. So it doesn't always have to be necessarily sensitive information, but again, what information are we sharing out there that affects that professional image we're portraying?
And it can just be helpful, if it's one of those points in a meeting where somebody says, okay, oh, hey, you've got that on your screen. Could you share that? And you don't think about it and you just share the whole screen. Suddenly you're showing something sensitive. So good idea
Well,
to have that closed
and I
down.
think it can go to show to your organization level as well. If you're the person who has 15,000 tabs open in their browser, then you have to click through all of those to see whatever it is you're trying to share.
Excellent point.
Right.
So good one. Thank you, Julie. Well, this is a fun one. Have you ever heard something you shouldn't? during an online meeting? Or have you ever had to explain a noise on your end? Well, we call those audio bloopers. And we want you to share some of those with us today. First of all, what I want you to do, I want you to raise your hand if you have ever been in a meeting where somebody has had an audio blooper, whether it was you or somebody else. Raise your hand right now if you've ever been in any session that's had an audio blooper. Oh, Lord. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead. Those of you who hadn't had a chance, go ahead, just click on the little hand over there. And let's see. Oh, goodness. Yes. We have had some audio bloopers. Oh,
Definitely.
apparently these people have all been in the meeting with me. All right. So what I want you to do is I'd like you to think about that. And if there's a way that you can describe that audio blooper in a just short little description, type it into the questions box because we'd love to hear about them. You know, we're all about bloopers. So if you have any ones that you could share, type it now into the questions box.
Poor Danielle, her dog pushed the door open and ran away in the middle of a meeting. Terrible.
Sounds about right.
I would have been gone shortly thereafter. And I probably
Definitely.
wouldn't remember to turn my screen or mute myself. Lots of
Those
dogs.
bloopers.
Whoa.
Oh,
Oh. A few curse words maybe have been heard.
oh, see, those bloopers are why we say use mute. Unfortunately, I have a story to share. I was in an online training, and we had just finished in our breakout rooms, and I forgot to put my computer back on mute. And the facilitator asked a question, and I said, "Beat the heck out of me." And she heard, and she said, "Oh, okay." I was so embarrassed. And so it's real important that you use the mute button, especially, when you're in that virtual online setting. Something else, which is I found is really cool, is that if you push down, if you're in Zoom and you want to speak and you're on mute and you want to speak, if you push down the space bar, it'll unmute you and you can go ahead and share. But it's important for you to remember to, one, put yourself on mute. And if you're going to unmute yourself to share, make sure you put yourself back on mute. That way you can avoid those bloopers.
And some of the comments actually, instead of things that people heard, it's the things they didn't hear because they forgot they were on mute. So they talked for a few minutes and everybody was like, "We can't hear you."
Oh,
So those can be equally as embarrassing.
definitely.
Absolutely. I love it. I love Todd, one of our cohorts, said during a meeting around noon, I left the mic open by accident and asked my wife, "These fries are for me?"
There's lots of food ones. Somebody was ordering an Oreo McFlurry at McDonald's, and of course, their ice cream machine was broken, so they didn't get it.
They're always broken. They need
Right. I feel so much better with these stories. I feel so much better. I'm starting a support group afterwards if anybody wants to join.
Oh gosh, toilet flushing. There's the fear.
Oh,
That's
no.
the scary one that we all fear is hearing that one. Yes. Oh goodness. I was in a large meeting on my phone. I thought I had it on mute and I was driving through Dunkin' Donuts. Everyone heard my order. This is making
That's
me
when
feel
you just
so
have to
much
say
better.
hashtag no judgment.
Right. Right.
Oh goodness. Okay. Yeah, disable the sound of your emails, please. That's a really good point.
Mhm.
Um, uh, was in a meeting and the presenter's child walked in and asked for help finding shorts. So these are the kinds of, you know what? The good thing is we look at all of this. If it happens to you, and it will, uh, know that you're not alone. We're all in the same boat, and we're all going to have these kinds of things happen. And I think that's where taking yourself a little bit lightly can be a very positive thing during this point in time. Okay.
True.
Oh, you guys, that good stuff. Okay. Testing 1, 2, 3. Those are the words you should be saying before every meeting.
Every platform gives you guys the option to test your equipment before you use it. So please take advantage of it because you never know what's going to happen. Julie, I believe you have some ideas that'll help us in making the most of that option.
Yeah, I think since I signed up to talk about this when the universe had its funny ways of testing me this morning because my computer crashed.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
so something that and my main point is like it's not if something happens, it's when.
Yeah.
As long as we've been doing this, whether it's in person, gotta check that equipment. Your camera, your microphone, your speakers, making sure, some of us like to use headphones, but when you go to unplug those headphones, whatever platform you're using might not automatically switch your speakers back to your computer speaking or speakers. So those are all things we have to check to make sure that are working. So when we go to talk, they can hear us and we can hear them. Something else to keep in mind is when you're switching between platforms like Zoom and GoToMeeting that we're using today, check your settings. Sometimes those same settings don't carry over to the different platforms that you're using. And like I said, my computer this morning, sigh. We started this webinar. The four of us got on here at 12:30, and it's a good thing we did because I had to reinstall GoToWebinar since everything decided to disappear this morning.
Mm,
Whatever can happen will.
definitely.
All right. Excellent point. All right. And that kind of builds on our next topic that we have on here is the fact that, you know, um, technical technical things can make or break our meetings. We do
Mhm.
everything that we possibly do, and still things can happen. Things can go wrong. Right now, we want more horror stories. So I'd like to hear about a technical glitch that you have experienced in a meeting. Something that happened. For me, it was finding out that the thing could actually go off and close the meeting down on everybody because I
Mhm.
was the only organizer. So that sort of thing. So right now, what I want you to do, using the questions box, I'd like you to share any technical glitches that you have experienced in a virtual meeting.
Yeah, Patricia shared that she was in a meeting this morning and she kept saying, I can't hear you, I can't hear you. And it turns out she had her headphones plugged in.
I've done that. I've done that. Those are the kind of glitches that and things that we can address by creating some technical guidelines for meetings. Monica, I believe that you have some sample guidelines that you use.
Yes. Pretty much like Christy said, we learned the hard way why it's important to have the producer and the co-organizers because it basically gives you a backup plan. So if you don't plan, you're planning to fail. That way, you want to make sure that that person, at least one other person, has a copy of the PowerPoint. So that if somebody is accidentally booted out, then that person can share their screen. As we discussed, that's why it's also important to make sure you have it readily available so you don't have to sort through a million files trying to find it to pull it up, and then things can flow as seamlessly as possible. You also want to kind of have a game plan for how do we want to address late attendees? Do you want to have a certain box set up where someone will fill them in on what's going on and then bring them in rather than just bringing them into the meeting? You also can decide ahead of time if you want everybody muted or if you want to let them self-mute. Okay. And kind of have a game plan for people entering and leaving meetings. We talked about the distractions earlier. It can be very distracting if every time someone comes in and out, you get that alert.
Ding!
Exactly. And so that can become a problem. The other thing, just because so many people can be camera shy, you may want to let them know ahead of time if they're going to be required to be on camera or if it's optional. Just kind of make that guideline ahead of time. The other thing we talked about or can be mindful of is signs. A couple of people have mentioned what can you do when you can't hear a person? Well, if you decide hey, at any point, if you can't hear me or you can't hear a speaker, just point to your ear. Then that will let the group know, and having a collect set of signs and what they mean. As Kim stated, if you're going to be away, then turn your camera off. That's the sign that you are away. That way, you're not accidentally called upon or you miss out on something and we think that you're present. So those are just a few things that you can do to kind of outline some guidelines with your technical issues.
Save us a lot of headache down the line, couldn't it? Yes, and we are seeing that people have had some serious challenges. One person, she said that her computer froze mid webinar because she had closed hadn't closed the other programs and they were taking up too much memory. That is definitely something to keep in mind. Julie, you
Right.
saw something too?
Yeah, and one person put that the host had everyone on mute and didn't know how to remedy that. I think as the host of these types of meetings and webinars, you have to know how to work the platforms. Going back to that last one, test everything.
Mm-hmm.
I
So
think
you remember I learned the hard way, being on VPN and being on Zoom or GoToWebinar. It's just not a good mix. It lags. So that's something else that I've learned.
And Stacy, I'm sorry, I've got to share yours. It's just too funny. She was on a Zoom meeting and everyone's picture was clear except hers, and they kept asking her why she's so blurry. And she was on her brand new phone that she forgot to take the protective film off of.
I've done that. I've done that.
That is fine.
oh, that's classic.
Awesome.
That is a classic. Absolutely.
I didn't do
Um,
it in a virtual setting, but I was like, why are my pictures coming out so blurry? That's why.
Okay. Uh-huh. And making sure that you're compatible. 'Cause some people were talking about the difference between Mac and the Windows platforms can not work together sometimes. And some of the other things that can happen.
Todd gave us a good one, making sure that our computer's updates are done after hours so that it doesn't try to shut down your computer in the middle of these types of meetings.
That's a good one, Todd.
Yep. I'm sorry, I'm still looking at some of the
I know,
other
right? They're
the
funny.
horror stories. Y'all are too good. On a Zoom meeting, husband walked in from grocery shopping, started yelling to his daughter, "Caitlin, I got cookies." And so now we're all thinking about cookies for a while, right?
Yeah, and there
Um,
was some person that said their spouse was in their vehicle and pulled up to the house, and so the phone's Bluetooth automatically connected to the phone or to the car.
Never thought about that, but
Never thought
yeah,
about that
It
either.
definitely
that
happens.
could be a very real challenge.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. So, I mean, we've got great stories, which proves that these are things we need to keep an eye on. Please do. All right. Thank y'all so much for sharing some of those. Yeah, we're going to be using those in classes for years to come. All right. So, okay. Now, another thing to think about, has your team created any special rules of conduct for your meetings? Like, what practices do you do to help keep your meetings effective, productive? If y'all have come up with any special rules for your teams, like that one we had earlier, where they don't allow the virtual meetings, they don't let a visual impromptu, they have to have planned for those, that kind of thing. So, any other kind of rules that you've come up with for your team to help with virtual meetings, we'd like you to type those into the questions box right now.
So I find that, I know that for our in-person meetings, you guys have heard us talk about how our in-person meetings, we had meeting guidelines or meeting rules. And so now that we're predominantly using the virtual platform, it's important that we revise those ground rules. So what works well in meetings might not work well for our online settings. So Julie, you want to help us with that one?
Yeah, and I think the same things that we would do in an in-person meeting, we have to do in an online meeting and then some. Because as some of you said earlier, how do you let somebody know that they're muted and you can't hear them? Are we going to agree upon hand signals? We've done it in our team meetings before. Crew, I'm going to put you on the spot. How do we let each other know if you're muted? Yep. So you get those nonverbal cues of, hey, we can't hear you. So we've got to all agree upon how we're going to handle this. Now, if you're doing a larger presentation, you might just set those ground rules. Here's how we're going to handle that. How do we tell someone they need to speak up and we can't hear them? Things that we need to consider. Or yeah, maybe they're muted. And then how do we handle wanting to speak? We want to try to limit, as you've probably noticed, in these our first go around with virtual meetings, there's people talking on top of people, because depending on everybody's internet speed, they might be lagging a little bit. So what kind of ground rules are we going to set that prevents people talking on top of each other? And then, since we're all, or some of us, are still in the comfort of our own homes, what kind of food and drink rules are we going to have? Not talking from experience or anything.
I'm the foodie. I'll go ahead and confess. I'm the one who eats on every Zoom call.
And, internally with your small group of people, that's probably not a huge deal. But when you're meeting with larger groups of people and the higher up you go in your organizational chart, those are the types of things that will ding our professional image. Great people, or great tips coming in from everyone. Mm-hmm. Erica's at 5 o'clock somewhere. Please note, we are definitely not condoning any of that. Wait till 5 o'clock where you are. Having coffee, those are things just to think about. How we're going to handle those. Like I said, those smaller meetings with your closer knit teams, probably not. Nobody will be offended if you're drinking coffee or water during that. Mm-hmm. Just things to be mindful of.
And yeah, and like Myra's talking about, with sometimes with the size of the meeting, you might have to do some rules like no questions until the end and that kind of thing. So whatever those rules are going to be, having those set up ahead of time.
Oh, Mary, that's an interesting one. She saw a guy's cat stealing his ham sandwich a couple of weeks ago.
I love Mary.
And then there's some things you just can't think of rules for, because who would have thought we needed a rule for that?
Yes. Right. Okay. Let's see here.
It's all about turning your camera off. I said it's all about trying to, when you're stepping away, to turning your cameras off. Especially, I know when I used to work outside, you guys saw me get assaulted by that wasp and you were wondering where I was, and I was running around. So trying to be mindful.
All right. And I'm looking through here to see if anybody else has any other specific rules. We don't have a whole lot of rules. Let's see. Yolanda, the number one rule is being professional. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. And some of the meetings are just, just the directors speaking and just asking for a response or request it. So it's not everybody jump in and step on each other as you're talking. So excellent points. And all of these, yep.
There was another one about rules about background images. I think depending on your team, that might be a good idea. Some of their teams have a rule of having no backgrounds.
All right. So it's a good discussion to have beforehand. So you're not finding yourself in a meeting getting all frustrated about something that's going on that nobody has discussed before. It's you can't hold people to standards that you haven't told them exist. Mm-hmm. So that's one of those things we want to keep in mind for that. Something I want you to think about too. Okay. In a regular meeting, we have those certain roles that people play. There's a facilitator, there's somebody taking minutes, there's a sergeant at arms to throw people out, whatever. But you have all these specific roles that people have. I'd like to know from you, what are some of the roles that you think would be useful in a virtual meeting? Maybe your team already has some, but what are some of the roles that you think would be useful in a virtual meeting?
If we want our virtual meetings to flow smoothly, we need to assign roles. And using that virtual meeting technology, it requires additional set of skills from on-site meetings. So Christy, I believe that you have some more recommendations for us.
Oh, I do. All right, so here we go. First of all, don't just have a facilitator who is doing your online meeting alone. Have that producer also. we do it by ourselves sometimes, and it suffers because you're not able to give your entire attention to either thing, to the content or to the technical side. So it really works better if you do this as a team thing. Um, in your meetings, great idea, rotate your facilitator role. Even if it's just your weekly team meeting, rotate it so that everybody gets more practice working on screen in the little box. Because the more people who are comfortable with that, the more you're going to have a professional image any other meetings they have to go to. And once you've facilitated a meeting, you're a more effective person in attending a meeting because you understand what's going on the other side. And on that case, remember to set those permissions correctly. Make sure that the right people have the right to use their microphones or to use their cameras. Good idea too. Think about having a timekeeper. This is kind of neat so that the facilitator doesn't have to keep being the bad guy. You
Yeah.
know, okay, cut it off. We got to go. Instead, you have this other person who says, "Oh, we're out of time. Out of time on this topic. We need to move on." And you get to just kind of be the professional leading the meeting. Note taking, so easy nowadays. Like if you're using like Zoom or something, you have somebody type all the minutes directly into the chat. After the end of the meeting, they can mail the chat to themselves. Everybody gets to see it and make corrections as they're going through it. And if they don't want to save the chat, all they have to do is copy and paste, and they drop it into another document, and you've got your minutes put together for that meeting. So that's kind of a neat thing. Find somebody who is in charge of creating your agenda slide. I know that most of our meetings we're looking at each other and it's a big Brady Bunch thing, but it's also helpful if you share a screen that has the agenda on it so that
Yeah.
everybody's not going, how much longer? How much longer? Where are we in the agenda? So having that on screen during the meeting does help a lot. And somebody who can help others who can to correct their names, because sometimes your name comes up as your email, and some of us have emails that really shouldn't be on screen. So having somebody in there who can help them change their names and make sure that it's right. Basically, we say use these roles, create whatever roles you can think of, and have people help you with those so that once you get into that virtual meeting room, you can hit the ground running. And that's what shows professionalism, is somebody who is that prepared that when they open the mic, they're ready to roll.
Yeah.
Did y'all see, were there any other roles that people had?
Moderator, somebody to specifically handle the tech issues, and someone to handle questions and make sure that nothing's missed.
Oh, that's excellent, because it's very hard. As you can see that I've been trying to do it, keeping up with these. You don't see everything that's on the screen, so that helps having somebody else doing that. And oh, good point, Yolanda. Having a proxy, if you're not going to be able to be there, make sure that you have somebody who is fulfilling your role in that meeting. Did y'all see any other ones on there? Because I'm trying to do both things at once right now.
I think our crew likes an agenda.
Yeah.
So lots of people saying have an agenda and stick to it. And also but that allows people to know what's expected, like you said, how long we're going to be here, and when it's their turn to present, if there's something they're going to present on.
Mm-hmm. So they can be prepared. Uh, and these are things we just want to keep in mind. We want to think about, everything that we can do before we get into the actual virtual room to make our meetings more professional.
Yeah. One last thing, Kalisha gave us a great note.
Oh boy.
She said, let our observers or attendees know what their role is. Do we want them
Oh,
to ask questions? Are we expecting them to share information, provide feedback? That's a great suggestion, Kalisha.
thank you, Kalisha. Definitely. So we can be prepared, knowing whether we're going to be expected to participate or whether we're supposed to just be quiet, watch, and take notes. So, okay, those are some really excellent ideas. Let's see here. Uh, okay. I think we got a lot of our comments that we've looked at. What I'd like to do right now is open it up to you on the panel for any of your closing thoughts, because we've covered a lot of information here, but I'm sure that you've had experiences and things that you've been through that bring other ideas to mind about ways that we can keep our professional presence as we enter the virtual world. Monica, would you like to get us started with any thoughts you have?
Sure. I don't know if it was shared or not, but as far as you do have the option, depending on what program you're in, you can record it. So you can use that as far as a feedback tool as
Mm,
well. If you're really piloting something and just to kind of see how it's going, see what worked well, what can kind of replay your game film. So I think that the recording really is a good resource as well that you, depending on your program, you'll have access to.
That is a great idea. Because I mean,
definitely.
it's one thing to have people fill out a nice little evaluation saying, oh, you did a fine, and everything. But being able to go back and look at what you did yourself, you are going to be
Exactly.
your hardest critic, and that's where you're going to start getting better. Excellent idea. Thank you for that one.
Right. Create a really, a great plus delta. What worked well, what needs improvement.
Excellent. Hey,
Mhm.
Julie, how about you?
Yeah, just to point out some comments following up on that recording, make sure we're letting all the participants know it is recorded so that,
Right.
they can be on their best behavior with their videos up there.
Good point.
And how that recording will be used. Is it for internal training purposes, like you said, Monica? That self-reflection of how did the facilitators present this meeting, that growth, that personal growth there. Um, oh, Susan, is recording legal without others' knowledge? We're going to tell you, check with your HR department, your legal staff, just to see what their say is on it, because I believe every agency is going to probably say how they handled that a little bit differently. So get the experts in that legal
Yeah,
section to give you their advice. My
without
closing thoughts are, I do believe this is going to become our new norm. So the sooner we become comfortable with it, and I'll tell you, my biggest challenge is looking in the camera. Right, I'm trying right now. I'm looking at all of your pictures on my screen, and I'm like, dang it, I'm supposed to be looking in the camera. Um, it's a new norm. It's going to be what we're moving forward or moving closer to in the future. So might as well get on board now.
excellent
Definitely.
point.
Yeah.
Excellent, Julie. Kim.
I found, and Julie, I have a problem with the wanting to look at people's faces as well. So I'm trying to look at the camera. So I found that what helped me, because we were all learning in the beginning and using a new platform, and I found that with us, with my team coming together and us establishing those ground rules, that really helped me a lot in order for the do's and don'ts. So if you guys haven't already established those ground rules, now would be a great time, because like Julie said, this might be our new norm, to go ahead, gather your team together and establish those ground rules.
Excellent points. What a team! Don't I have a great team? Some fantastic points there, and we hope that you've gotten some good ideas. We've gotten some great stories from y'all. I just never would have thought. So some really good information here. The cool thing is, a lot of this might be basic, no nonsense stuff. It's stuff though that we forget when we're in the middle of something, when we're in the middle of a meeting, when we're in the middle of something where it's an event or doing a presentation, and so the more we think about it when we're not in a virtual room, the more it'll carry over when we get there. So
Mhm.
setting that the ground rules for ourselves basically is what we're doing. Now we've got some good handouts for you for this session. As a matter of fact, you will find our virtual presence tips for meetings in the handouts for today. If you haven't been able to find those, you just go to the civil service page, you go to the talent development page, and you can pull it up and all of the handouts will be there, as a matter of fact. So you go to talent development, it comes up, hit the success series, and it brings up all of the handouts from all of the webinars that we've done. And doggone, there's some good material in there, I've got to say. uh, there's also, of course, the YouTube page where we have all of our webinars on there that you are able to look at. And we're not going to toot our own horn and talk about how we're way over 1,000 views now. That would just be tacky, so we won't do that. But it really is a chance for you to go back and catch up on some of the information that we've had in some of the many webinars we've presented over the past years. And something else that's really cool, uh, a lot of the departments do not have access to YouTube as when they're at work. So our crackerjack folks, our absolutely wonderful tech side of the talent development team, came up with the idea of putting these in Leo. And so now you're actually able to access these in Leo and be able to go through the webinar section by section and get all the information that you caught here today. And these are some great ways that you can tell people who might not have been here that you think might benefit from this information. Send them over there, please. We want more people to see this and get this information. Wow, it's been a very full day. It's been a lot of fun, and y'all have been absolutely awesome. Thank you so much. All right. So I thank y'all for being a part of this. I thank all of our wonderful participants for all these great stories and for being a part of our webinars throughout the year. And we will see you back here in August with some new exciting developments. Until
Woohoo.
then, yes. Until then, we say keep
Keep on
on
learning.
learning.
Bye, you guys.
Bye.
Every day for every citizen.